You might be smarter than you think. Not because you're imagining it, but because intelligence often hides in patterns most people never notice. We expect smart people to announce it somehow, through achievements, degrees, or constant displays of knowledge. But psychology research shows something different. Intelligence operates quietly, in subtle habits, in the way you process information, in moments you've probably never connected to cognitive ability. Today, we'll explore 7 signs that suggest your IQ may be higher than you realize. And by the end, you might recognize patterns in yourself you never understood before. The first sign is that you notice when things don't quite add up. Not in an argumentative way, but internally. Someone makes a statement that everyone else accepts, and your mind immediately generates questions. Is that always true? What about this other situation? Where did that assumption come from? This is not skepticism for its own sake. It's pattern recognition. Your brain automatically searches for inconsistencies, exceptions, and underlying logic. Research in cognitive psychology shows that higher intelligence correlates with increased sensitivity to logical gaps. People with advanced reasoning ability tend to notice when conclusions don't follow from premises, when generalizations ignore specific cases, when explanations feel incomplete. This can be isolating sometimes, because while everyone else moves forward with the conversation, you're still processing whether the foundation makes sense. But that internal questioning is actually your brain doing sophisticated analytical work. Most people don't realize this is a marker of intelligence. They might just think they're overthinking. But cognitive science would call it critical analysis happening automatically. The second sign is that social interaction, even positive social interaction, often leaves you mentally exhausted. This is not introversion necessarily, though the two can overlap. It's cognitive load. When you're in social situations, your brain is doing multiple things simultaneously. Reading facial expressions, tracking conversational threads, monitoring tone, anticipating responses, adjusting your own communication based on real-time feedback. For people with higher processing capacity, this all happens at a more intense level. You're not just hearing words. You're analyzing subtext, detecting emotional shifts, and running predictive models about where the interaction is headed. This is exhausting. Not because you dislike people, but because your brain is working harder during these interactions than others might realize. Research on cognitive processing shows that individuals with higher intelligence often experience greater mental fatigue after extended social engagement. Their brains are simply doing more work, processing more data points, managing more variables. So if you find yourself needing significant recovery time after social events, even ones you genuinely enjoyed, that's not antisocial behavior. That's a brain that was running complex social computation and now needs rest. The third sign is that surface-level explanations rarely feel complete to you. Someone answers a question, and while everyone else seems satisfied, you're left with more questions. But why does that happen? What causes the cause? What if the situation were slightly different? This drive for deeper understanding is common in people with higher cognitive ability. Psychologists call this need for cognition. It's the tendency to engage in and enjoy effortful thinking. Where some people are comfortable with quick answers, your brain wants the mechanism, the underlying principle, the framework that explains not just this case, but all related cases. This can make you seem difficult sometimes, or overly complicated, because to others, the simple answer was enough. But your brain is wired to search for systems, for root causes, for comprehensive understanding rather than just functional knowledge. Research shows that individuals with higher IQ scores tend to ask more why questions, not out of stubbornness, but because their cognitive systems are built to construct deeper models of how things work. This can be lonely, because most conversations don't go that deep. Most explanations stop at the surface, and you're left holding questions no one else seems to care about. But that depth-seeking tendency is exactly what allows complex problem-solving and scientific thinking. The fourth sign is that you unconsciously adjust how you speak based on your audience. With one person, you use specific terminology and dive into details. With another, you simplify and use analogies. With a third, you match their energy and tone. This is not being fake. It's cognitive flexibility. The ability to assess someone's knowledge level, communication preferences, and receptiveness, and then adapt in real time. This requires significant mental processing. You're running a background analysis of how the other person thinks, what concepts they already understand, what examples will resonate, what level of complexity they are comfortable with, and then translating your thoughts into that framework. Most people communicate in one consistent way, but research in social cognition shows that higher intelligence often correlates with greater ability to perspective take, to mentally simulate how someone else is processing information and adjust accordingly. This is why highly intelligent people sometimes feel like they are code switching, not between languages or cultures necessarily, but between cognitive frameworks. You're translating your thoughts into different modes depending on who's receiving them. This takes effort, and most people don't realize it's happening, but it's a sophisticated form of social intelligence, one that requires both analytical ability and empathy, the capacity to understand not just what you want to say, but how the other person's mind works. The fifth sign is a strange one. You can recall obscure information from conversations weeks ago, specific phrases someone used, a detail from a documentary you watched months back, the exact way a friend described a situation, but you constantly forget where you put your keys, or what you were supposed to pick up from the store, or someone's name, even though you've met them multiple times. This seems contradictory. How can someone remember irrelevant details but forget practical information? The answer lies in how memory systems work. Research in cognitive neuroscience shows that people with higher intelligence often have stronger associative memory. Their brains automatically create connections between ideas, concepts, and patterns. This type of memory thrives on meaning, on interesting connections, on things that trigger curiosity. But practical memory, like remembering tasks or names, relies on a different system, one that requires deliberate attention and repetition. And if your brain is naturally drawn to complex patterns rather than routine information, practical memory often gets neglected. This is why highly intelligent people are sometimes described as absent-minded. Not because they can't remember, but because their memory prioritizes depth over utility, meaning over function. The sixth sign is that you see connections others don't. A conversation about work reminds you of a historical event. A problem in one area seems related to something completely different. You notice that two people, in totally separate contexts, are making the same type of mistake. This is pattern recognition across domains, and it's one of the clearest markers of high intelligence. Cognitive research shows that the ability to identify abstract similarities between unrelated concepts is strongly linked to fluid intelligence, the kind that is not about memorized knowledge but about processing capability. Your brain doesn't store information in isolated boxes. It builds networks, connections, mental models that span across different areas of knowledge. So when you encounter something new, your brain automatically searches for structural similarities to things you already understand. This is why highly intelligent people often make surprising comparisons, why they draw on unexpected examples, why they can explain complex ideas using analogies from completely different fields. It's not showing off, it's how their cognitive system organizes information. Everything connects to everything, and those connections reveal deeper principles. Sometimes this makes communication difficult because you will reference something that seems obvious to you, and others won't see the connection at all. But that cross-domain thinking is exactly what enables innovation, creativity, and novel problem-solving. The seventh sign is perhaps the most telling. You frequently downplay your understanding. Not out of modesty exactly, but because you've learned that showing your full processing speed makes others uncomfortable. So you slow down your responses. Pretend something took longer to understand than it did. Ask questions you already know the answer to, so others don't feel left behind. Psychologists call this masking, and it's remarkably common among highly intelligent people. Research shows that individuals with higher IQs often report feeling like they have to hide their actual cognitive ability in social situations. Not because they think they are better, but because past experience taught them that processing things too quickly creates distance, makes people defensive, or leads to being labeled as arrogant. So they learn to calibrate, to operate at a speed that matches the group, to wait before answering even when the solution is immediate. This creates a strange internal experience. You're constantly running at partial capacity, translating your actual thoughts into a more palatable version, holding back not out of insecurity but out of social awareness. If you've ever felt like you're performing a role of being normally smart rather than showing your actual processing, that's a significant indicator. It means your baseline cognitive speed is higher than the environment you're in typically expects, and you've learned to modulate it. This can feel exhausting because you're managing two layers, the actual thinking and the presentation of that thinking. But recognizing this pattern is important because it means you're not imagining it. Your brain likely does work faster or differently than you've been allowing yourself to acknowledge. Intelligence is not always loud. It doesn't always announce itself through achievements or credentials. Sometimes it shows up in quiet patterns, in the way you process conversations, in what exhausts you, in the questions that won't leave your mind. If you recognize yourself in these signs, it doesn't mean you're better than anyone else. It just means your brain operates in specific ways that cognitive science has identified as markers of advanced processing. An understanding that can help you stop questioning why you think differently, why certain things are harder for you than they seem to be for others, why you sometimes feel out of sync. It's not a flaw. It's a different operating system, and recognizing it allows you to work with it instead of against it. You're not overthinking. You're not too sensitive. You're not pretending. Your brain is simply processing the world at a level you may not have given yourself credit for. And that's worth understanding.